Hello and welcome to our devotions, our reflections on this Tuesday morning. I wonder if you like my new hairdo. It looks rather splendid. Let me just turn around so that you get the full whammy. My wife added yet another skill to the many that she has by cutting my hair the other day, just outside on our patio area, so that all the masses of hair that she lopped off wouldn't end up in the house. It's a nice spot just outside our dining room. It's got a table and some chairs, and it's got a view over the garden, and it's lovely to sit there. Although it has to be said that earlier on in the day, it wasn't such a nice place. You see, the thing is, a little bit before the haircut, we heard a big bang in the house. None of us thought anything about it. We regularly have birds flying into windows. But after a little while, we investigated, and just by the area where I later had my hair cut, there was the plump body of a massive dead pigeon. And not only that, but it was missing half its head, which was strewn underneath the rest of its head on our patio, all red and white and sticky and not very nice. So a nice place became not a very nice place because of what happened, and it was a bit gruesome having to clean up. And still, while I was having my hair cut, I could see a little bit of stainage on the block paving outside. So a place can be a good place, or perhaps not so good a place. It struck me that location is a really important thing. Our daughter and son-in-law are thinking of moving house just at the moment, and location's a big thing. How do we work out what's the best place for us and our family to be in? And sometimes God calls us to particular locations to do particular jobs, not just us, a ministerial family being sent by conference to various places, but all of us thinking that God intends us to be where we are, well, praying that we are in the right places that God wants us to be. It reminded me of that passage in Exodus 3, the burning bush, where Moses hasn't got a clue that he's in a significant place. He's in the middle of nowhere, really, but then he sees this strange burning bush, and God speaks to him and says, "Take off your shoes, because this is holy ground." It wasn't a particularly special place, but it became a special place because that's where God and Moses had their great first encounter. In my first sabbatical, it seems hundreds of years ago, I went to 2 locations that were very significant for me, and I brought back some evidence to remind me, as it were, of where I had been. Let me show you. This is a lump of Iona marble. Ian Andrew, amongst others, has reminded us of what a special place Iona is, that little island that is just like many an island off the west of Scotland. But somehow, because of all the things that have happened there and all the people who have been there and all that emerged from it, it's become a special place, what MacLeod calls a tissue-thin place. And this block of marble from the quarry at the southern edge of the island, a remote and pretty inaccessible place, just reminds me of the beauty of that place and the special way in which it ministered to us when we're going through a hard time. We kept going back there because it was a good location for us. I wonder if you've got special places like that that have meant a lot to you. A few weeks after one of our visits to Iona, during that sabbatical time, I went to another place. This is a half brick from the block of death in Auschwitz. Probably highly illegal that I took it away with me. But just as Iona reminds me of all the good that there is in the world, and the goodness of God shining clearly to people, so this part of Auschwitz and all that it represents sums up to me the other end of the spectrum of human experience. Maybe you've got some places a bit like that for you. As you know, our readings at the moment are taken from the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, where there's a lot of very complicated stuff about priesthood. It's written, obviously, to people from a Jewish background, hence its name. And they would have known well all the history that means very little to us. Jesus is proclaimed through this book as a priest in the Order of Melchizedek, not one of the better known of the Old Testament characters. He crops up in Genesis. He blesses Abraham. He's the king of Salem, or Jerusalem as it became. He comes before the priesthood that would then carry on through generations in a dynasty from Levi and Aaron, and he couldn't become a priest in the temple in Jesus's time if you weren't from the family of Levi and Aaron. So Jesus couldn't be a priest because he didn't have the right lineage. Curious, ironic. But then he was a priest in the Order of Melchizedek, who came first, who ministered to Abraham, who you remember was sent not just for the Jews, but for all nations. And Melchizedek, well, we don't know quite where this blessing took place. The location really isn't important. The Jews at the time of Jesus thought location was important. Their high priest went once a year on the Day of Atonement to the Holy of Holies to make an ultimate sacrifice to God. But no, Jesus wasn't into that sort of location. There isn't a Holy of Holies location. Jesus, in fact, spent most of his time outside, talking to people, meeting their needs. It just struck me that as we are within or not within our special buildings called chapels, we might do well to think that the location of our worship isn't important. God can meet with us in all kinds of places. In fact, a local poetess called Elizabeth Barrett Browning who was born in Callow, just the other side of Durham, wrote this: "Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit around and pluck blackberries." I love that. Maybe today, as you go about your business, wherever it may take you, you might recognise God and not just spend time plucking the blackberries, but take off your shoes, recognise God's presence, feel his closeness, and recognise that he loves you. God bless.